Humans and ghosts live together. In the past few days, I have been chasing in home without sleep. And the more I watch it, the more I feel a kind of utopian positive energy that hits the bottom of my heart. The employees of a large Shanghai real estate agency store have established a brotherhood at work. That is not a relative but a relative. And the whole of China wants to find such an agency, and I will screw my head off. Should we promote positive energy? It must be. Can blindly ignore the method and brag awkwardly. Wishful thinking makes the world and the work full of thick eye smoking. And the person who looks at it is bound to eat chocolate sauce like a white mouth. The entrance is sweet and excited, and the whole body is happy. The more I ate it, the more greasier it became, and finally it was disgusting. And I didn't want to look at it again. What is higher than life is art, and what is detached from life is nonsense. Yesterday, I talked to my colleague about this emotion. She said that when she came to Beijing after graduation, she really rented a murderous house and lived with the ghost for a year. In the autumn of 2007, when a colleague graduated with a master's degree and came to Beijing to report, she was looking for a house in vain. And the intermediary platform pushed a listing information to her. She clicked on it to see a set of about 50 square meters of single bedroom in the old community of Xiamen. 800 a month, and a year of rent. To be honest, Xiamen is a bit far away from our unit. But the rent of 800 a month is too tempting. It is important to know that Xiamen is located in Beijing's West 2nd Ring Road. And at that time, a single bedroom apartment in the same area cost at least 1,500 a month. After entering the owner, half a month was fine. Until one night my colleague aunt arrived. And her lower abdomen was sore, and she went to bed early. Who knew that she would have nightmares in the middle of the night? Unable to scream or move in fear and suffocation. Looking at an old man in a shroud, who stared at her with malicious intentions and sneered. My colleague screamed in fright and woke up. This nightmare frightened her a lot. And she was nervous and frightened for a whole day. But the next night she had no dreams, and her colleague slept until dawn. She originally thought that she was making a fuss and thinking too much. But since then, whenever she has menstruation, she can always dream of that creepy old man, wearing a royal blue antique shroud, staring at her with compassion and sneering. And her colleagues are always scared and sweating. And they don't know what to do. Over time, she also vaguely guessed whether there would be a problem with this cheap rented house, and went to the real estate to inquire several times. But the salesman in the store swore that there was absolutely no death in the house she rented. If my colleague insists on unilaterally terminating the contract and quitting the lease, they will not refund the rest of the rent. My colleague had only been working at the time, and he had no savings at all. So he had to continue living in that creepy one-room apartment. Who knew that later, not only when menstruation, but even when my colleague was not in a good state of fatigue at work, the strange old man in the shroud style would come to sleep at night, smile at her, and once stretched out a cold hand and touched my colleague's face. She was full of excitement and woke up in fright. Immediately afterwards, he developed a high fever and lay in bed for 2 weeks before relieving. Just when my colleague was frightened and in a dilemma, one day the director of the neighborhood committee of the community came to visit 3 middle-aged people. 2 men and 1 woman. The 3 people knew at a glance that the person who came was not good. And the eldest sister of the neighborhood committee hesitated for a long time, saying that the owners came back to get something. My colleague couldn't stop me. But the 3 of them worked together to push the large cabinet across her bed. And a closet appeared on the wall. The middle-aged man in the lead opened the closet with a key he carried with him, and took out a small box wrapped in black cloth from inside. The group didn't say a word from beginning to end, took out the box, reset the cabinet, and left in a hurry. My colleague grabbed the director of the neighborhood committee and told her that she had to make her speak clearly. The director of the neighborhood committee had no choice but to tell the truth about the cause and effect. Originally, the three middle-aged old fathers lived in this one-bedroom apartment, and the old lady left early, leaving the old man to live alone. The three of them almost never show up, and the old man's food, clothing and daily life have caused trouble to the neighborhood committee. Early in the morning 2 years ago, when the neighborhood committee visited the old man again, he found that the old man had died at home. His face was blue and his eyes were full of anger, and the doctor concluded that it was an acute myocardial infarction. The neighborhood committee contacted the old man's children to handle the funeral, but the three of them failed to negotiate for many days because of the amount of money to pay for the purchase of the cemetery, and they were not even willing to spend the money for the ashes. So they unanimously decided to place their father in the closet of the old house. This is a revelation, but it deserves enough choking for my colleague. She asked the director of the neighborhood committee casually. Then why did this brother suddenly find out about his conscience? The director of the neighborhood committee said that she didn't dare to ask in detail. So she heard their little girl underestimate the sentence. I always have nightmares all year round, and I can't sleep well and can't stand it. It's been more than 10 years since this happened. And when I mentioned an home, my colleagues remembered it again. She lamented that many things are unclear between the living and the gone. If you ask me if there are any ghosts in this world, I will say that I have never seen a real ghost with my own eyes anyway. But if this living person lives in a ghost, then I'm afraid it won't be far from seeing a ghost.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and put notification on to watch more videos. If you have similar experience, please comment and let me know your experience.